Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to Healing Hearts. I'm your host, Jessica Holland. If you have a goal that you are trying to reach and you feel stuck, this might be what you are needing to hear today. I hope that you can find little things that can help you in this, whether it's from my words or something that sparks up an idea within you. As you can see, today's episode is about discipline. Ugh, that just sounds so yucky. Just talking about discipline all in all. But discipline is actually a beautiful thing. With that being said, let's get into it. There are so many ways we can cultivate discipline. One of my favorite ways to cultivate discipline is by simply transmuting energy. If you don't know what transmuting energy is, I bet you have done it at one point or another in your life. The first example that comes to my mind when it comes to transmuting energy is when I was in the process of losing weight. And as we all know, sometimes losing weight is a whole journey all on its own. All through my younger years, I could remember specific schoolmates calling me fat, ugly, or that I didn't look like a feminine girl. Fast forward years later, after having a baby, I remember leaving the hospital and pushing like maybe 300 pounds, and that's probably the most I had ever weighed. After getting through postpartum to see what I would lose from producing breast milk, I remember taking a picture in front of the mirror. When I took this picture in front of the mirror, I remember saying to myself, this is the last year that I'm going to look like this. When I said that, I truly meant it. I meant it to my inner self. When I would be pushing through workouts, one thing that really helped me is not only the desire to want to be healthy, because at that point it went beyond just looking good and enjoying what I see when I look in the mirror. It really boiled down to health. I was remembering what mean kids at school would say to me when I was trying to push through a workout. I would remember when my dad told me only a month only a month after giving birth, my dad said, I can't believe you haven't lost your baby weight yet. I can't even imagine just what things that unfortunately he might be thinking about his own self. Those statements or that energy that had been sent to me fueled me, and that is what I mean by transmuting energy. It fueled me to push harder, because a little part of me, yes, wanted to prove people wrong, but at the end of the day, I wanted to accomplish something for myself. And when you're transmuting energy, you're making something that could have tore you down and cultivating it into discipline, or changing the form of how you use it. Changing it, because no matter what, words are words, and those words could have been sent to pull me down even further and feel bad about myself, or those words could be used to fuel me for just the workout that I was trying to do and movement for my body that didn't feel good then, but now feels good to me now. You know, I see a workout now in a much different manner than I did before. I see a workout now like a deposit for my health of what I'm going to be cashing out later on in life. And once again, it is all in the form of how you use it, however you decide to use that energy. With that being said, discipline is looking out for the future you. A lot of the times, when we hear the word discipline, we automatically get a little bit turned off by the whole thing, and we're like, oh, here we go again. Something else to force me to do something that I don't feel like doing. But guess what? Feelings change, and that's a great thing. Because once you start doing something that in the past might felt a little forceful to you, your future you is going to be thanking you, and you might end up enjoying it so much. We have to change the way we look at discipline if we want to embrace it. And I say embracing because discipline is not here to manage us. We actually are in charge of discipline. And that is why we embrace it. Embrace it as your trusted confidant. That is to show you the way to the next level. That leads me to just say a good way to accumulate those discipline skills is know who you want to be. I heard something really good the other day about how some people, they have a to-do list but not a to-be list. And that really digested well within me, because I was like, wow, she is so right. When Em said that, I just think that how different would this world be if we had to-be lists instead of just to-do lists? When you achieve that goal, there is something that is going to be almost like an identity shift. And looking back at my example, I knew that after I would lose some weight, I would no longer identify as being unhealthy. That is an example of what I mean by there has to be an identity shift, and there will be an identity shift. Once you begin to treat that discipline and it becomes a part of your life, a part of your routine, a part of the way that you live, it just becomes a part of you. You know, moving your body becomes a part of you when you are trying to get more healthy, get more fit. So as for me, like I was saying, identity would no longer be unhealthy. Therefore, I had to be a little bit more conscious of how I was speaking to myself, how I thought about myself, because I was putting in the work in terms of eating better, in terms of working out. So I was putting the outside work. Now I had to get myself disciplined from the internal prospect. Where does that identity shift start? It starts by understanding and knowing who you want to be. When you begin to get clear on knowing who you want to be, it is going to start to shine the light on some micro habits that we have. And micro habits make up a lot of the ways that we may fail in reaching our goals. That is why shining the light can start to make those little changes just a little bit easier when it comes to using discipline. What a full circle moment, huh? But hear me out. When we look at the micro habits that we may need to change, it will help in the long run when it comes to holding the new identity that we step into. Because you will realize, like, well, I know that I have a craving right now. And this comes to all of us in any area, whether it's if you want to stop gossiping. You know, the mind is a beautiful thing, but at the same time, if we don't know how to put in the proper hardware, it can destroy us. Because after all, an emotion is just a chemical reaction. And like I said, using that gossiping as an example, it is also just a chemical reaction. When you talk about someone, when you put someone down, it's a chemical reaction that is giving you an output and an input. So anywho, fast forward about a year and a half later into my weight loss journey. By that time, I want to say I had lost about 100 pounds. I ended up getting some skin cut off. This was one of my first times I can look back and say I was learning what it meant to uphold a new identity. A new identity that I had shifted into. After recovering from my surgery, my abs were put back together and about 5 pounds of skin alone was cut off. I specifically remember I would pick up my son's toys from the floor And it was the strangest feeling. Now I know this doesn't compare, but the best way that I can explain this feeling was like the feeling of phantom limb. When a person loses a limb and it feels like it's still there. I would pick up my son's toys and it would just be so surreal trying to pick something up with nothing in the way. You know, I didn't have that skin anymore in the way. I did mirror work to adjust myself to the body that I essentially woke up into. I say woke up into because after all, I was put to sleep when I got that excess skin taken off. I digress, my friends. Back to the discipline. There are actual times where you are disciplining yourself when it comes to almost achieving that goal, and something stops you or something in you kind of puts you in a freeze mode. The only reason that's happening, well, first and foremost, let me interrupt myself. If that's happening to you and you're recognizing it and you're getting frustrated, hey, you are just having a human experience. The only reason that you feel a little bit blocked is not only normal because you have been so used to being a certain way, but it also feels like a little bit of friction because as the new you emerges, your old self is almost trying to crawl back in the picture and trying to just get you to do what you've been so used to doing. And that's why we feel a little bit of friction. And that's why sometimes happens almost like a freeze state during this time. When this happens, you just go to your micro habits that you are trying to implement for yourself. When this freeze thing happens, it's almost like trying to skip ahead in a story and you don't know what's happening in the story because the in-between time was never read. That is why it is so important for these micro habits to be implemented on the daily, and the little steps do matter. The little steps make up for the longer journey, and it'll help you regulate your nervous system when it comes to these changes that are happening in your life, and it'll help you once again just uphold that new identity shift. Because going back to the different example I used when it comes to gossiping, if you don't want to gossip anymore, that means that some of the friends that you have or coworkers or people that you attracted in because of that energy that you were in with gossiping will not be attracted to you anymore. That means that you might have to find new people to be around with. That means that if you are used to complaining, other individuals that were complaining right there with you are not going to be on the same vibration that you are on. So that's where in the in-between time and getting used to this new identity, that is where you have to keep the strongest, because it might feel a little bit lonely wherever you are and whatever situation you might be in. I mean, I knew when I had lost weight, I could no longer relate to some of my friends, and a little bit of, I wouldn't say jealousy, but a little bit of like friction would be there, because I no longer just wanted to be sedentary. I wanted to get out there. I wanted to do things. And these different habits that I had acquired, they didn't want to do. And that's totally fine. That's totally fine. Whenever there is an identity shift, there also is an environment shift. And that's definitely something to get used to. Being in as Aladdin said it best, a whole new world. But it's worth it. It's worth it if it's for the better for you. It's worth it if in the long run you are that example. And a lot of the times when you're the first person to do something within your friendship circle or within your family, you are considered the leader. And what happens when you are in leadership? You're going to be judged first. I just want you to be prepared for that. And yes, you might have individuals saying, oh, do you think that you are too good? You don't have to indulge in that. You can transmute that energy just during this process. Don't self-sabotage. Don't let yourself wonder why it's happening to you. All this is happening for you. It should be just a little push to get you further along in your journey. And once again, these micro habits, they're going to come to your rescue. These micro habits are going to put you at the right place at the right time, meeting the right people. So yes, in this human experience, sometimes the subconscious mind will block us, not only because the goal at times is so different that the mind can classify it as dangerous, or we are so spread thin that our brain is trying to save energy by keeping us in the familiar state. Because once again, we are just primal beings, and in the mind, it just might feel like the lion is chasing us, When we catch ourselves self-sabotaging or freezing up, it is so important for us to be kind to ourselves as well. Whenever I see blockages come into my own life, I will take a moment to myself to regulate my breathing. And I know it sounds so silly. Something such as breathing can help you, but it really does. And there's so many good resources out there that can help you with breath work and understanding that pretty much if you can regulate your breathing, things will start changing in your life as well. So I regulate my breathing and I remind myself that it's okay to feel scared or whatever emotion that I'm feeling. And I almost, in a way, I dissect it. I ask myself, what is this fear trying to protect me from? What is this self-sabotaging trying to keep me in, and why? A lot of the times there are part of us that came up from certain situations only to keep us safe. I acknowledge the feeling and I remind myself that I love who I was, I love who I am, and I love who I'm becoming. And I just throw in there some good affirmations for me to just soak up. A lot of the times I will think about different situations in my life where I thought something bad was going to happen and it never happened. Or I'll remind myself when I thought something bad was going to come out from a situation and it turned out 10 times better. This just leads me to give you the friendly reminder to be gentle with yourself, because you never have been this version of yourself. You've never been this age before. This is the first and only time that this day will ever happen. So be gentle with yourself and be intentional. Be intentional with the thoughts that you are thinking. Be intentional with the individuals that you surround yourself with. There's plenty of times where I have been talking to people and I allow the conversation to stop. I close the conversation. You know how you have like a close-ended conversation, and I just walk away. I'm like, have a good day. Or, you can end it kindly. There's different ways. You don't have to be rude or anything. Because if I see that it is not going anywhere, or if it's not aligning with who I want to be, you can stop it right then and there. So yes, intentionality will take us so far when it comes to discipline. And don't worry, you are at the right step of achieving your goal, because you chose to listen to this. You chose yourself today. Whatever you thought was delayed is actually being upgraded. A lot of the times we forget that. We think that since we haven't seen the huge change in ourselves, in our attitude, or in an outward situation, we think that it's just delayed, something went wrong. But hey, what if it's just a test to see if you really want it? What if it's just a test to see if you're going to go back to being the old you, the old way of being? I also want to put out there that discipline does not have to be harsh. Discipline can be in the way that you even wake up in the morning. Starting to make your bed, starting to read a good affirmation right when you wake up in the morning. That is a form of discipline. If you've never done it before and you want to be more positive, that is a form of discipline. It doesn't have to be very harsh on you. Remember, there's only one of you, and you are here for a purpose. Thank you. If this episode helped you, please pass it along, share it, all that good stuff. And if you're curious a little bit more on the different types of discipline, don't worry, there's another episode.